Hello everyone, and going towards today's session, my purpose today is to, explore you, show you a different and an exceptional way in which you can create your data analytics visualizations through some of the concepts of data storytelling that we are going to explore in this session over here. Um, Now, someone from my team took the effort to, show me these techniques of how we can create beautiful visuals through our data. And I thought of sharing that with few more people. That is why I thought of selecting this topic. Now, I'm a computer engineer by qualification, and I think, work, and deliver results just like any other engineer would do, until I saw a radically different output of a product that we were working on, which made me think about what can I do or what should I be doing to create such kind of an output. It then dawned on me that I should be going and learning and reading many more areas or subjects so that I can start producing such kind of output, right? So it is like this. You are creating an output based on what you have been doing so far. But if you want to create a different output, you have to change the way in which you're doing things currently. So that is what we will be learning today in today's session. We'll be covering four main topics. One is, first I will walk you through some of the statistics related to data analytics prevailing in the market today, and which will be mostly based on what visual contents um, do, right? And then we will look into some of the visual design principles, right? These are needed to make your visuals stand out so that they start telling compelling stories. So you have to understand some of the basic concepts related to visual design, and then we will move towards the storytelling concepts. Look into what are the concepts that we have to understand to convert our data analytics visuals into compelling stories, and then look into the applications of these, going through some of the examples that I have put across. I have looked into this storytelling with data. I've referred to this book written by Cole Nossember Knaflic, which is which explains beautifully all these concepts with a lot of examples. If you get a chance, do make sure to have a copy of it and go through it, because it's very detail oriented with lots of examples, and I'm sure it will be a good guide for you. So going ahead with the session, let us see some of the statistics which I mentioned about data analytics. So with respect to data analytics and BI, Gartner prediction in 2019 was that through 2022, only 20% of analytic insights will deliver business outcomes. So you can imagine that if it is the amount of effort that is getting wasted, if it is just 20% of the analytics, if it is consumed, right? And the one of the reasons which was stated was the output is hard to consume. See, there were many reasons. I had researched on many articles, and there were many reasons which were stated, but we are interested in this particular one, because that is what we are going to cover today in our session, because that is what we are going to improve on with our data storytelling concept, right? And I'm sure most of you would have faced this challenge when provided with an analytics project, where you have a lot of things to convey to your stakeholder, right? It would be like it would be challenging for you to convert all that information into a visual. I'm sure everyone would have faced that. And we need to understand that this is a art which you have to learn, right? There's a different skill that is required for this, and it is a step-by-step process in which you will implement it, and then you will improve on it when you start doing it. So these are few more statistics that I wanted to present to you. I've taken it based on different things related to the visuals that you would be presenting to the stakeholder. The first would be is taken from creating a compelling stories with your data. Right, in that the first one says that 93% of human communication happens through visual content. So it's so important your visuals are. And the next one says that 60,000 times faster our brains can comprehend images than text, right? All these statistics is related to visuals. The second I've taken from some digital marketing story article, which says that 94% more views are received for content pieces that include images. And 200 more shares are generated for infographics than text-only content. The other two, which I have taken from dashboard, creating compelling dashboard. That is 65% of people are visual learners. And 13 milliseconds is the time required for us to recognize an image. So that is so fast, so quickly we can understand image, or a human being can perceive an image, right? So all these statistics tells us that our visuals we have to get them correct, right? Because that is the way in which humans perceive information. It is easier and much faster for them when it is through a visual content you are providing them information. And this becomes imperative for any of your data analytics output that you would be creating. So with this statistics, it is very clear to us that visuals do a lot of information talking, right? So we have to get them correct. So how do we get them right? How do we fix this? There are three factors which we can take care of. One is the dashboard design principles and best practices. Then the second one is coming up with rich ideas for better data visualization. And the third is doing story dashboarding. So all these factors has to go in together to create that compelling dashboard design, so that it attracts the required attention from your stakeholder, and that would trigger the necessary action, right? And the three elements for your dashboard design, which you have to keep in mind, is you have to know your audience, and second is tell a story, and then third is it should lead to action. These are the three key elements that your dashboard design should follow, right? Now let us go to the second topic from our agenda, that is the visual design principles. Now why should we know these principles? What is the importance of that? See, just by understanding how your audience sees and perceives or processes information, it will equip you to create, compelling stories, or telling or doing effective communication, right? So you have to understand why and how your end user or your audience sees and processes information. And so the intention over here in understanding this visual design principle is to simplify the cognitive load of your audience. The cognitive load is, there's a theory on this, which says that it is the amount of information that human brain can process at a particular time, right? So it is like 7 bits of information with plus or minus 2. And that is the information that a human brain can process in their short-term memory. So make sure that whatever visuals you present in your dashboard is not heavy on the cognitive load. It doesn't create a lot of load on your end user, because then they will lose interest in that. So you have to minimize the cognitive load so that it creates a lasting impression on them. right? And they have that in their permanent memory. Okay, so in this we will look into 6 main things, areas, like I have listed out. We'll go and check one by one. The first one is the pre-attentive attributes, right? Now, the attributes such as elements such as size, shape, color, line, space, and alignment and position. You will see them in the examples. I have put a lot of screenshots, in which you will be able to see how these things are applied, right, in action. So these elements, when they together, they will create a well-rounded and a balanced and a thoughtful visual for your end user. These are called pre-attentive attributes because they are used. One is to direct your audience attention or focus to the point where you want them to look at. And second is to create a visual hierarchy so that you lead them through the information on your dashboard in a way that you want them to process, right? So for those things, these elements will be helpful for you to design your visuals. So in effect, we'll see that once you apply all these things, you are enabling your user to see what you want them to see, right? And then also creating an aesthetic appearance to your visual and giving that experience to your end user. So that is the intention of this. Then we'll go to the next one, the second one, the scale. Now, this is a small screenshot I've put of a Medium app. When I'm saying scale means, you see there is at the top, it is mentioned popular on Medium, and it is much bigger in size compared to the rest of the content over there. So that is how you make use of this property, the scaling. So whatever you want your audience to focus on, this is one method by which you can focus their attention towards that area using the scale. Then second is the visual hierarchy that is shown in this particular screenshot, where the title is in bold and bigger in size, much bigger in size, then followed by a short sentence which is comparatively smaller than the title, and then the main content is much smaller, right? So that is a hierarchy you are creating. These are all part of visual design principles. So when you have to create a compelling story, these are the elements that you will have to work together so that your visuals are attractive. Second, third, fourth one is your balance, right? And in this particular screenshot, you can see how the elements are like if you draw a vertical line in the center, you will see that elements on both sides are equally balanced, right? So that is how you create a balance in your visuals. The next case, I've shown a not balanced screen as well. It is some scientific paper, I guess, which there is no they are not equally distributed in both on either side of the line, of the vertical line. Then the fifth one is the contrast, right? In this particular app, you can see how the delete option is highlighted with a very bright color compared to the rest of the content in that document, in that app, right? So that is how you highlight contrast with a different, you can use color to make it stand out from the rest of the things, because it is a specific action which might create some impact in the user experience. And then the last one is the Gestalt principles. But before that, I've just put one diagram over here. Now, just because you put content on your screen, it will not guarantee that your users are going to view it, right? So this image is part of an experiment or part of a series of studies conducted by Jacob Nielsen, where it depicts the F-shaped pattern of how users view or scan web pages or look at the phone screen, right? Um, so what was found that the areas which are marked in red, which are other areas where the user focuses, most of the users focus their attention on, followed by the yellow areas. So there will be fewer users who would be looking in those yellow regions. And then is the blue region, where much lesser users would be looking compared to the yellow one. And then the gray areas are the ones where people usually skip that area. They wouldn't be looking at it, right? So that is how, and what another thing which they observed was most of the users will look at the top left of the screen, right? Because that is where the search results appear, the first search result, which has a lot of importance from the user's perspective, right? Which they feel is very critical. So that is one area where most of the users focus their attention. So what I'm arriving at is you have to leverage people's natural order of progression when designing information architecture, and make sure that this important information and action which you want the user, whatever you want to convey to the user, is in this visible areas and with proper positioning. So that is where the positioning is important. Let us look at this the Gestalt principle. Now, this principle is about our tendency, our human tendency to perceive something as whole, right? Or discrete elements, separate elements. You perceive them as a whole rather than looking them as individual elements. That is what this principle is about. So in this, we will look at 6 cases with diagrams so that you get to understand how we can apply it. Now, these principles will help you to declutter your visuals or your graph in such a way so that you can highlight only the critical area of your graph for the user to understand it better. All other things, how you can de-emphasize is what these principles will help you do. Right? We will see applications of each of these that I'm telling you in the examples. The first one is proximity. So in figure 1a, you can see there you can see it is 3 distinct groups, right? Because of the proximity of those dots which to the area, to the section where they are nearer to. So you feel that it is as a group. Similarly, in 1b, just because they are near to each other, you in the first section, you will see it as go down, showing it as a row, and the second one you will feel it as across the line, right, as a row. You will consider the first one, you will look at it, you will feel it is a column, and the second one you will look at it, you will feel that it is a row. So even without having sharp bold lines, you can achieve the feel of a table-like form with these kind of patterns. The second case is of similarity. In 2a, you will see how same colored dots, you will feel them belonging to a group. And in the second case, you will feel those black squares which are there, they belonging to one group, right? So because of the similar, so first case it is similar color, second case it is similar pattern or shape. And in 2b, you will see just because those dots are in similar color, right? They are highlighted. So you understand that row is important, and you have to look at the data across as a row. to figure out the information that you need. So you can leverage this pattern in your designs. Next is enclosure. In 3A, you will see there is an enclosure created for 3 different groups, including elements from 3 different groups. So this enclosure looks like these elements belong to a different group, right? So that is the perception that you get when you look at that diagram. Similarly, to the next, in the next diagram, it is a background color. A small gray shade is provided so that you feel that those dots belong to one group. That is the perception you get when you see that diagram. Now in 3B, when you come to 3B, you will see it is a prediction over there. The actuals are plotted and the forecast is has a background color. So that is enclosed, right, to highlight maybe to the user that, okay, that is the area where they have to focus because that is the prediction over there happening, right? Then next is the closure principle. And if you look at 4A, you will perceive it as a square, as a circle, right? Even though the elements, there are a lot of elements in between which is missing. But since you, as I said, we subconsciously have that perception of looking things as a whole rather than as separate. So that is what this principle also tells, right? So we feel that it is a circle. And then in 4B, similarly, if you look at it as a graph, it has those your graphic tools which provides those borders and the background color. But if you look at the figure on the right, even without those borders and those background color, you will still feel that graph as a cohesive entity, it's as a one single entity, right? So you just get rid of those borders and background colors and still your graph stands out, right? That your data will stand out if you do use this principle. The next one is continuity. Continuity in 5A, see the first one. First one, you have two rectangles, and when you pull them apart, you see them as, you perceive them as you see them in the second diagram, right, in 5. But it could be as well as what is shown in 3. That is, there is a gap in between. It could be like that. But as we perceive things as whole, we would think about it as it is shown in the diagram 2. Right, so that is the continuity principle because we perceive things that way. Similarly with 5B, if you look at 5B, you feel that it is a graph and it is aligned against a common y-axis. And why do you get that feel? Because your labels, right, and the graph, the spacing between them is equal in all the cases, right? And so you get that feel that it is a continuous thing, y-axis over there, and against that it is plotted. So you get that feel of continuity over there. Then the next is connection principle. In connection principle, that overrides the similarity thing, right? Because even though you have patterns which are of same colors or same shapes and all, still if you create a border across those and make it as a connection, people will focus their attention on that and perceive that as a separate group, right? Irrespective of whether there are elements of same colors or not, or same shape or not. But whatever you enclose through a connection will have more precedence compared to the other. Right. So this can be look like that enclosure itself, right? But your enclosure principle will have more precedence when compared to the connection property. But the connection property can be utilized in a way that you make those borders much more thicker. So then that will stand out. So it is how you apply it to your design. Then is 6B. 6B, this is our usual line trends that we draw, right? Where you connect all the discrete data points to form that intended line graph that you need. So even though even though it is explicitly missing, you will still perceive it as a connection. As means there is a line which connects all this dot. That is the feeling that you will get, right? So we covered our visual design principle. We saw, just let me recap on that. We saw the pre-attentive attributes like the shape, size, color, position, alignment, those things, then followed by the other things like the scale, the visual hierarchy, the balance, and the contrast. And then we looked at the Gestalt principles, similarity, proximity, enclosure, closure, continuity, and connection. So these are the things that we saw. Just keep this in mind, because this is what we will be seeing in action when we look at the examples after this. Now, let us look at some of the concepts of storytelling, right? Now, when we talk about storytelling, we humans are hardwired to engage with stories, right? We as kids have heard stories. Now, because this process, or we were told stories, right? And because this process of saying and reading and hearing to stories, they create a lasting impression on our memories, right? Because these things are repeatedly being told to us. So anything that gets repeated will be cemented in our memory, in our long-term memory, in such a way that later, at a later point of time, we will be able to recall and retell the stories to someone else. So, and another thing is storytelling makes learning enjoyable, right? And we can easily connect with the message because it is relatable, and hence it becomes very effective. So we not only connect to the information that is provided through stories, but we also feel those emotions. Now, take the example of the story, The Hare and the Tortoise, which we have been listening since our childhood. When someone just mentions about it, we can easily relate to the moral that it conveys, right? So that is the power of story. Same is the case with our visuals, right? Visuals that we create in our data analytics. If we like get it right, I mean, if your visuals are super simple in a way that it is etched in the memory of your audience, then it is like creates that impact in them that they will be able to recall it later, right? Because they will be able to relate to it, to the message that that story conveyed or that visual conveyed to them. So that is why we mentioned that we have to reduce the cognitive load that is created by your visuals. So when you reduce it, it becomes more easier for your audience to understand it. And when they understand it, they will be able to store that in their long-term memory. And if they can store that in their long-term memory, they will be able to retell that story. So that is what this process would go like. You tell compelling stories. Compelling stories would trigger emotions, right? Emotions, and if anything that triggers emotions would be stored in your permanent memory, in your long-term memory. And anything that is there in your long-term memory can be related to in later point of time. You can relate to the message that was conveyed, and that would definitely inspire action from the audience. And whatever inspires action that would result into the desired change that is required by the business, right? Because definitely whatever analytics they are doing for solving some business problem, right? So for that to happen, they have to take the necessary action. For taking the necessary actions, or to make that change, they will have to take necessary actions. For that action to happen, they have to be convinced with the visuals that you show to them, and they should be inspired to take that action. So if you look at it, this goes like this in a loop, because one person gets impressed with your visuals, they are going to tell to the other, just as it is with the case of stories, right? When we get impressed, we retell that story to someone else. The same happens with your visuals also. It is convincing enough for one person, you will have more people looking into those visuals. And when you have more eyes, then it is like more people involved, and it will trigger that necessary action needed to bring that necessary change in the organization. So that is how the storytelling will impact your audience. Now, what are the concepts that we have to take care of when we do this, when we have to go about with data storytelling? First is we have to understand the context, right? Even if you have you visualize your data, see, there is some particular business problem that you are trying to solve, and that would be for one particular type of audience, right? Either it would be the sales team, or it would be the marketing team, or it would be the senior management. It would be for different stakeholders. So you will have to understand the context correctly, and accordingly you will have to twist your stories, the information that you provide. Then choose the effective visual, right? Which chart or what kind of graph you will be plotting. You will have to make a correct choice on that. Then the third one is eliminating clutter. So we saw in our visual design principles a lot of methods, right? How we can use those to create compelling visuals. So apply those in the third stage, where you can eliminate clutter using those methods. And then fourth is focus your audience's attention. You have to use those principles which we saw, especially this pre-attentive attributes that we discussed, to bring your audience attention or focus to that particular point of your graph, so that they get the message which the graph or the visual is trying to convey. And last is tell the story. When I mentioned that we have to tell the story, see, we have to always remember whatever data we have is always related to some human activity, right? It's because of some human activity that data is generated, right? So that should relate in your story that way. Now let us look into the examples that we have, which I've taken from that same book, because they were beautifully explained over here. Okay, this is the first one which we'll be looking at. Just take some time to, go through each aspect of it, and then I'll start explaining. This graph is showing the average retail price of products per year, right? We have, if you look at it, there are 5 products, and we have the prices from 28 to 2014. And there's a title in this graph also which says that price has declined for all products on the market since the launch of product C in 2010. Okay, let's try to understand this graph more carefully. If you look at it, A and product A and B, look at product A and B, yeah, from they were launched at a particular price. And then in the next 2 years, we see that their prices, their average retail price did increase, and then it shows a decline, right? From 2011 onwards. That means whatever the titles say does apply to product A and B. That is, their prices decline after the launch of product C. And product, if you look at product C, it was launched in 2010, right? And product D and E were launched later. Product D launched in 2011 and E in 2013. Now, suppose that you are working for a startup and that has launched this product, which you have to price it. I mean, they have come up with a consumer product which has to be launched in the market, right? And you have to price it, come up with a recommendation for the price at which it has to be launched. So how are you going to use this information to recommend a price for the product that your organization has created? So when you look at it, this is the context. You have, let's say this has to be presented to the VP of product, who would be deciding on the price for the new product which you have created, or which your organization has created, which has to be launched in the market, right? And what is the information that you have? You have the average retail price of products or your competitors, in the market for the past few years. Let's say you have that data, and that is what you have to use to arrive at a recommended price for your product. Now, as we saw in this this particular graph, right? Is there any way? Let's say your audience or your stakeholder, that is the VP of product, is having a look at this particular graph. Will he be able to, that is what you have to think. Will he be able to decide on a price, a launch price for your product with this graph? Isn't it making it difficult for him? Because there is so much of information which is competing for the user's attention, right? The title, the bars which are too colorful, and the legends and the labels, all of this. I mean, isn't it too overwhelming for the user to even decide how he has to proceed with deciding on a particular price range for launching his product, right? So let us look at a transformed version of this using our data storytelling technique, how this can be simplified so that you send across the specific message to this particular stakeholder, so that it becomes easier for him, one, to understand the graph, right? Second is to make a decision, right? So these are the two say goals that you will achieve when you simplify the graph. So I'll show you the simplified version, and then I'll explain how the elements were changed. So I have put it before and after. Okay, so let me explain this one by one. So we looked at the concept, like knowing the context. Second is deciding on the graph, right? So if you look at this transform version, they have moved from the bar graph to the line graph. Okay, so what could be the reasons for that? Let us try to understand it. One is when we have to recommend a price range, we have to compare the trends of various products, right? Which is already there in the market. What were their trends, and that trend has to be for over a period of time. So when we are doing that, and also it has to be a comparative thing, right? Where we understand how the trend has been moving across the different products in the market. Right. So naturally, when something has to be a trend, it has to be converted to a line graph, right? And so so that is the reason why it was moved to a line graph. And third thing is we have to eliminate clutter. So look at how things have been highlighted or de-emphasized in the transform version. If you look at the first thing is the chart border is removed, right? And then look at the x-axis and the y-axis, they are grayed out so that it doesn't compete for the user's attention, right? And but there is this recommended range which they have highlighted will come, that is a fourth part of it. We have to focus our audience attention, so that is in a different color shown. So let us look at how the declutter thing has been working on. The line graphs, if you see, they have made of similar colors because they don't have to. There's no other purpose that these product trends is going to serve, because we are not comparing anything, or we don't want to know, or your audience doesn't want to know what happens with their with the competitor's product. It is just that our end goal is to find a competitive price for our product, right? So and that is the reason why all the lines, if you look, all the lines are of same color, the gray color. And another thing what they have done is I've marked the lines directly in the graph, like for product A, B, and C, so that it is much easier for the audience to understand, because since it is all of the same color, they don't have to provide a separate legend over there. And then the label, y-axis labels is moved to the top. Similarly, for y-axis, it is moved to the left at one corner so that it doesn't distract the user. And then as you see the trend, when you plot the line graph, you will understand that the prices of all the products are converging in 2014, right? With say A at somewhere around 260 and product C is the lowest, maybe at 180 or something. And so based on those two values, they have highlighted an average value, which is around 220, 220. Yeah, I guess they have mentioned it in the statement. It is 223. The average price is 223. And then what they have done is they have put a recommended range between 150 to 200. And what is the statement that they have made in the title? That is, to be competitive, we recommend introducing our product at the 223 average price point, and that is between the 150 to 200 range, right? So they are recommending the product should be our product price should be below the average price, and they are giving a range between 150 to 200. So now this particular transformed version of the graph, right? It is very straightforward for the consumer, the stakeholder, right? That is the VP of product. For him to understand it, he gets a direct information from the graph itself. He doesn't have to bother like yes, compared to the previous version of the graph, trying to understand how things were moving. Because in this particular version, it is very straightforward. He can see A is moving. There's a downward trend after an initial increase. It is moving. Then it is all things. All the product prices are converging in 2014, right? It is very straightforward, and it is easily understood also. And then the recommended range is also in a different color, highlighted, so that the user's attention is focused at that point, and they easily get the message that it is between 150 and 200 with the statement made at the top. So we have simplified the cognitive load for the user, right? And it's pretty straightforward. They don't have to work a lot to understand the graph compared to the previous version. I guess that was the best that they could do with this transforming this particular graph. So let us look at a few more examples. There's a second example where okay, this is about a retail store where they're trying to figure out the performance of their store compared to the competitors. Okay, so it is our business, which is a diamond star if you look at the legend, right? And then the competitors with different shapes and colors, right? And there are 5 categories in which they are trying to, rate their performance. Selection, convenience, service, relationship, price, like this. 5 categories are there. And then if you look at the y-axis, it is both we have negative values as well. And it is mentioned that this is a weighted performance index, right? So let's say that it was they were conducting a survey to understand how their store, asking their customers to rate them in these 5 categories so that they understand how their performance is when compared to their competitors, and then accordingly work on their to improve their performance in those areas where they are really performing low, right? So if the index is high, that means they are performing really good, and if it is low, it is negative. In case here it is low, is some values are negative. That means in those areas it is their performance is really low. Now, when you look at this graph, it is a bit confusing. At certain places, you will see the R business diamond is overlapped in some cases, and it is difficult for a person to understand. Though of course, I mean, if you spend some time, you will get to know how in which area you are performing well. Especially you look at if you focus on the diamond, the blue diamond, you understand that price is the area where your business is performing really well. Then it's convenience, and then you see the selection and service, but it is difficult for you to figure out which one is lowest, right? So let us look at how this gets transformed. Now, so the context, you have to present to the management, say, the performance of your performance metrics for your business on these 5 categories, and then recommend where they have to focus their attention on for better performance, right? So what will this graph be good enough, or what is the best way you can depict the story is what you have to think. And then next is to see how you can declutter the graphs to make it more simplified, and then think about focusing your audience attention to the particular areas where you want them to look at, and then have a convincing storyline over there. Let us see how this got transformed. So if you look at the graph, which is the revised version, it is being converted to a horizontal bar graph, where the competitors like A, B, C, D, and E, they are all in same color because their information is not of importance to us. We just have to plot them in that order. Because we are interested in knowing how we are performing compared to the competitors, irrespective of which competitor, right? So that is the reason why all the competitors are in the same color, right? And only our business is highlighted in the blue color with the blue bar, right? And then few more things over here is they've completely got rid of the x-axis. If you see the axis completely, right? Why? Of course, you don't need the information on the y-axis, because in the y-axis it is the categories that you are writing. But if you look at the x-axis, what they have done is they have converted this weighted performance index to a positive scale, right? So that see, if you look at the earlier version of the graph, the negative points is not adding any value to your business or the management, right? It is more confusing, or they are not even interested to know what value it is it? It is not of any importance to them. They just need to know how you are performing compared to your competitors, how much you are performing better than your competitors in each of these categories. They are not interested in knowing the exact value, right? So what is done is, it is those weighted index those is converted into a positive scale, and also if you look at it, the categories have been displayed in a descending order of how their ranking is, right? With the best performance category at the top, followed by the next best, then the next best, and so on. So you have price first, because that is where our business is performing the best. And also, if you look at the what to say, the label on that blue bar, it says 1 of 6. That means you rank first. They have given a relative rank also when compared to your competitors. So you are in the price category, you are the first among the other 6 competitors. Then in convenience, you are second. You rank second out of the 6. So like that, they have provided the relative ranks as well. And yeah, and they mentioned, it is also mentioned that it is a weighted performance index. Just given the legend highlighting our business, which is in blue, and the rest all are in same colors, and they are plotted in that order, A, B, C, D, for all the categories. So that is how the legend is also described, right? Yeah, and when you look at the 4th point of our concept, that is focusing your users' attention, they have done that very correctly by highlighting our business in blue color. So of course, your audience attention will be going towards those points, right? So this is making it much more easier. You don't have to crack your brain to understand this particular graph too much. There isn't much cognitive load on your end user. And let us see some more examples. Okay, this is the 3rd example. this is a survey result. Let's say you have conducted a summer training program for science, and you want to see the interest of students in the field of science, right? So that is the reason why you conducted a summer training program, maybe for the second and third grade students. And what you did is you conducted the survey before the program and after the program, so it's pre and post, right? That is what the 2 pie chart is about. And if you look at the the graph before the program, there are 40% of people or students who are just okay with the field of science, right? And 19 to 25 percent are kind of interested and excited. But after the program, you will see the kind of people interested and excited has increased, and the okay one has decreased. Right? So there is a definite change. So that means your program was successful, and um, it gave the intended results. Maybe see, you wanted to influence the students to go into the field of science. That is the reason. So how does this graph translate? See, though it is the user, though it is you can understand it, but the user still has to spend some time to figure out how the percentages change, how much it changed. I mean, they have to do some work on their side, right? So how can we simplify this graph? Look at this particular transformation. It has been converted to a bar graph, right? Where both the pre and post are put side by side because it is a comparison. So it is better to have it in a bar graph, right? And there's a legend about gray, which says before program, the majority of the children felt just okay about science. And after the program, which is in blue, you will see more children were kind of interested and excited about science. And also you will see the gray of okay is highlighted a bit more dark, so that whatever you have mentioned about that is related with that diagram. And to show the interest after the program, kind of interested and excited category, it is a bit darker shade of blue, right? To highlight that, okay, there was a considerable increase in the number of students who are excited in the field of science, right? And see how the title has been put, like pilot program was a success. So you're directly giving the message over there. And it isn't much. And also, if you look at the labels, they have been directly labeled, all those bars, 40%, 11%, 12%. It is directly put on the bar graph itself instead of on the axis, on the y-axis. So it makes easier for for your end user to understand how that has changed from before to after. So that is how it has been simplified, and it makes it easier for you to tell the story also of the program, and then you could request for further funding to start some full-fledged program. This is a ticket trend where it is like information technology team has plotted their tickets which they receive and the volume of tickets that they process. And if you look at the trend, it is diminishing over here, the volume that is processed. I guess from January to July, they are pretty okay. They're doing well, but from August onwards, the trend is they are not able to keep up with the ticket volume received. If you look at it, it is really difficult for some user, for your end user to understand that. So let us look at the simplified version of this. I'm going a bit quick because we are running out of time. See how this has been transformed. So suppose your what to say, intention or your context was to, give your hiring requirements for the next year. In that case, you have to present your case and then you have to give some statistics about it, right? That is how you will be presenting your case, where you are directly mentioning as the title, please approve the hire of 2 FTEs, right? So then I mean, whoever is looking, whoever is your stakeholder doesn't have to bother much on to understand why you are asking, because the story is pretty much straightforward in that graph, where it is shown the trend over time, right? From the, if you see the two colored lines, like one is for the tickets received and another one is for the tickets processed, right? And then there is a vertical line in the month of May where it mentions the 2 employees, and there's some what to say, a note also written over there where it says in the graph that 2 employees quit in May. We nearly kept up with incoming volume in the following 2 months, but fell behind with the increase in August and haven't been able to catch up since. So the reason is been pretty well stated over there as well. So if you look at the trend from August onwards, they were not able to catch up really because the difference is really high. And look at how they have decluttered the graph. All those what to say, the graph borders and axis labels, they are all de-emphasized, I mean grayed out a bit. And also look at the data points in your graph when compared to the original version. They have just got rid of all the data points except from the month of August. They have kept those data points because you want your user to focus their attention at that point, because until then it is smooth. There isn't much, like whatever is processed, whatever is received is almost nearly processed that much. There isn't much story over there. The story is on the right side of the graph where they have put those points as well. And they have put those 2 lines in 2 different colors to highlight which is the received and which is the processed one, right? So let us just recap on what all we did. We saw some of the statistics about data analytics, how much is consumed and what is the importance of visuals, how much weight they carry when humans perceive visuals, right? And then we looked at the visual design principles, the pre-attentive attribute scale, visual hierarchy, balance, contrast, and the Gestalt principles. Then we looked at the concept of storytelling, and there were 5 areas that we had to highlight, look into when we are moving our data towards storytelling. One is knowing the context, second is choose the right visuals, eliminate clutter, focus audience's attention, and then tell the story. Then we looked at some of the examples. So just keep this in mind. Your users, they are, when you look at the psychology of your user, they love to be in control, right? And they have, just keep in mind that they have very short-term memory. We saw the concept of cognitive load, right? There is a limit to how much information we can keep in our working memory. And the users will love things which are simple, because that will be easier for them to store in their memory, and then later, at a later point in time, they can recall it and retell that story to others. So these are our 2 takeaways. We have to showcase large and complex data in a simplified manner. And the second is we have to enable our users to understand data faster and make quick decisions. So we saw this in the 4 examples that we went through earlier, that how we simplified those graphs to something which the user doesn't have to spend a lot of time in deciphering and making some decisions out of that, because all the information that was that has to be understood from the graph. We conveyed it directly to the end user, right, to the point, so that they don't have to crack their brain to understand what the story is in those graphs, because that is how you ease the process for them through your data storytelling scenarios that you build, right? So I guess, yeah, these are the references that I went through, these articles to come up with this. Any queries, questions? Can we go ahead with the Q&A? It's okay. Someone has asked about the book. Okay, it is the storytelling with data. I'll just bring up that slide. It is storytelling with data by Cole Noshember Netflix. Anyway, I'm not able to go back to that particular slide. So I just, I'll type the answer, storytelling by data, storytelling with data. This is the book. And how are you, it is by Suvendu. How are you going to decide which type of graph we are going to use? Does the design thinking process matter here, or the visual design pattern matter most here? It is the visual design pattern that will matter most, right? Because it is the dashboard visuals that you will be putting across, right? Design thinking process, it is conceptually, it would be something different for a different topic altogether. So in this particular case, for your visualization, your visual design pattern is what you'll have to take care of. And how are you going to decide which type of graph we are going to use? That is, there is no direct answer to this particular question, okay, because we have seen in the examples also, there are cases where we, used line graph. There were cases where we used the bar graph. So it is, you have to decide on few factors. Like suppose you, like we saw the example of the science training program, right, where we had to compare two values. That is the survey results before the training program and after. So in that case, you saw converting that into a bar where you plotted it near to each other, the post and the pre, made sense, right? So it is based on, it will be case to case basis, and anything that would be a trend over a period of time will naturally has to be on a line graph. That is for sure. So there are some parameters like this which you will have to consider when you have to decide on which graph would be the best option. Yeah, so that is what I would suggest. I guess, yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you all for attending.